All right, let's dive into one of the cleverest, most powerful ideas in all of machine learning, dropout. Now, this is a technique that sounds totally backwards. You're basically making a network forget things to make it smarter. I know, it sounds crazy, but trust me, it's absolutely essential for building deep neural networks that actually work in the real world. Let's get into it.
So first off, what makes these deep neural networks so powerful to begin with? Well, their magic really lies in their sheer, mind-boggling complexity. We're talking about networks with millions, sometimes even billions of parameters, all these little connections that let them model incredibly intricate patterns in data.
But here's the twist. That incredible power, that superpower to learn almost anything you throw at it, that is also its greatest weakness. It's a classic double-edged sword. And that weakness has a name you've almost definitely heard before: overfitting. This is the central problem that a whole family of techniques called regularization is designed to fight. You can think of it as the danger of having a perfect memory.
Think of it like a student who's amazing at memorizing answers for a test. I mean, they'll get 100% on all the practice questions they've seen before. But what happens when you give them a new problem, something they've never seen that requires actual understanding? They completely fall apart. That is overfitting. The network just memorizes the training data instead of learning the general patterns underneath. And it's a simple formula. The more parameters you have, the higher the risk.
So how do we get our brilliant but lazy student to actually learn the material? Well, this brings us to a really radical and, frankly, beautiful idea for a solution.
And that solution is a technique called, you guessed it, dropout. So instead of relying on one huge fixed network, dropout forces the model to be way more resilient by, and you gotta love this, just randomly switching parts of itself off while it's learning. It literally learns by forgetting. And this visual really captures the idea perfectly. On the left, you've got your standard, fully connected network. Everything's talking to everything. But on the right, that's what's happening during a single training step with dropout. We create this temporary, thinned-out network by just randomly dropping some neurons and all their connections. It's like the network is constantly rebuilding itself on the fly. Okay, this brings up a really critical point. Dropout works in two totally different ways, one way for training and another for testing. It's really a story of chaos and order. So during training, everything is stochastic. It's random, it's chaotic, the network is constantly getting thinned out. But then during testing, when we actually need to make a prediction we can rely on, the whole process becomes deterministic. It's fixed, it's stable, and we use the full original network. So how does the network pull off this switch? Let's break it down.
Let's dig into the training part. It all comes down to this one key setting that we, the developers, choose. It's a hyperparameter called P. And you can just think of P as the probability that any given neuron is kept active. It's like flipping a biased coin for every single neuron before every single training step. So if P is the chance it stays, 1 minus P is the chance it gets dropped. So for every little batch of training data, a brand new, random, thinned-out network is born. The information flows forward through only the active nodes, and then, this is the important part, the learning signal, the backpropagation, only updates the weights for those neurons that survived that round. Any dropped nodes are totally frozen, just for that one iteration.
Now, you might be thinking, this sounds incredibly chaotic. How does it learn anything stable if it's different every single time? And that's a great question. The key is that we're averaging the gradients. While the network structure is different for each little mini batch, the weight updates get averaged out over thousands of these batches. This process smooths out all the noise from the random dropping and lets the network actually learn something stable and consistent over time. Which, of course, leads us to the million-dollar question. If we spend all this time training these constantly shifting, thinned-out networks, how in the world do we use the full, complete network when it's showtime, when we need to make a real prediction? And the answer is just this beautifully elegant piece of math called weight scaling. Think about it. During training, any neuron was only active with that probability P. So at test time, when suddenly all the neurons are active, the combined output is going to be way too high. It's like a choir where only 80% of the singers practice at a time, and then for the final performance, everyone shows up and sings at full volume. It's going to be too loud. To compensate, we just scale down all the weights by multiplying them by that same probability P. This makes sure the output at test time is in the same range the network learned to expect during its chaotic training. And hey, here's a quick but super important pro tip for anyone who's actually going to code this up. The original papers talk about P, which is the probability of keeping a neuron. But a lot of modern frameworks, like Keras for example, ask for the rate, which is the probability of dropping a neuron. So a P of 0.8 is the same as a rate of 0.2.
Do yourself a favor and always check the documentation.
Okay, so we've got the mechanics down. But why? Why does this bizarre process of randomly killing neurons work so ridiculously well? This right here is the real aha moment. It's called the Ensemble Effect, or the wisdom of the crowd. What Dropout is really doing under the hood is, well, it's kind of mind-blowing. It's basically training a massive number of different smaller neural networks all at the same time. If a layer has n neurons, you're implicitly training up to 2 to the power of n different thinned-out networks. Now, they're not totally independent, they all share weights, which is key. But you're still exploring this huge exponential number of different network architectures. And then, at test time, when we use that full network with the scaled weights, what we're actually doing is getting a really good approximation of the average prediction from that entire army of models. It's the ultimate wisdom of the crowd. Instead of relying on one superstar expert model who might have a blind spot, we're taking the consensus from literally thousands or even millions of smaller, diverse models, and that collective is almost always smarter. So let's zoom out and think about what this all means for the bigger picture. Dropout helps turn what could be a fragile, complex network into a much more robust machine. It turns a potential liability into a real asset. And like we said at the start, Dropout is a form of regularization. It falls into this category we call architecture adaptation, and it sits right alongside other classic methods like applying weight penalties or using early stopping. It's just a really powerful tool in our toolbox for fighting overfitting. So let's just do a quick final recap of those two phases, because this is the absolute core of how it works. Okay, training phase. It's random, neurons get dropped, and learning only happens on the thinned network for that step. Testing phase, it's totally fixed, all the neurons are present and accounted for, and we scale the weights down to get a stable, sensible output. It's this beautiful two-step dance that makes it all possible. And really, the ultimate takeaway here is this. Dropout takes a deep network from being this fragile thing, prone to just memorizing everything, and turns it into a robust, generalized learning machine. And it does that by making sure no single neuron or connection ever becomes too important. It prevents any single point of failure.
Because think about it. Since any neuron can just vanish at any moment during training, the network can't afford to rely too heavily on any one of them. It is forced to learn redundant representations. Other neurons have to learn to step up and cover for their neighbors. And it's that built-in teamwork, that redundancy, that makes the final model so strong and so good at handling new data it's never seen before.
And that just leaves us with one last kind of wild thought to chew on. We figured out how to make our AI smarter by forcing it to forget things. So the big question is, what other brilliant, completely counterintuitive ideas just like this are still out there, just waiting to be discovered, ready to completely change technology all over again? Thanks for tuning in.